Welcome to the Colliers International Lawrence Commercial Real Estate Forecast of 2020. We're so glad to have you here. First and foremost, we want to say a few thank yous, namely to our Kansas City leadership team of Ted Nerdy, Elder, and Brian Johnson, as well as all the other colleagues that made it over today. We really appreciate your love and support and all we do. Some other thank yous that help make this presentation possible: our marketing department, especially the talents of Michelle Roberts, Martin McGuire, Audrey Overstreet, and last but not least, Val Reimer, who is our marketing and transaction specialist from our office. Thank you for all you do for us. We really appreciate you. And if we could give them a round of applause. We also wanted to point out that we work with a lot of companies throughout the year, and many of you in this room, in fact all of you in this room, are special to us in a number of ways. We tried to do a little bit of a brain dump this year and specifically name the companies that have touched us and our clients and helped us be successful this year. So this, I know we're missing people on this list, but thank you. Thank you for all you do for us. We hope we provide you with value, and we hope to work with you, continue to work with you in 2020 and beyond. So let's talk about what happened in 2019. Well, kind of looking back over the current events of this last year, I'm thankful we're not in a government shutdown, because this time last year, until January 25th, we would have been the longest government shutdown in history. So I'm thrilled to say we're not in that environment. But coming out of that government shutdown, we're happy to say that 2018 actually was very positive, not only for us in the commercial real estate market, but consumer confidence was high and interest rates remained low. And that kind of evolved into how our market, the Lawrence market, and quite honestly our region, evolved and really had a successful year. Our office particularly, we had the largest transaction history of our existence. Our transaction count was up over 25%. And we just kind of wanted to give a smattering of the sales and leasing activity that our office handled this past year, namely in the downtown market. We kind of cut out what transactions happened here. I think downtown was probably at the top of all of our minds as far as what is happening, what is evolving, what is changing. And we're thankful to say we're kind of the last people to get to tell others news until it's kind of up out in front in public. But a lot is happening in downtown, a lot of positive things that are happening in downtown. Namely, at the end of 2019, there were over $200 million worth of construction permits pulled for projects that are up and coming. I think we were all pleasantly surprised to see this number. At the end of 2018, over $280 million of the permits were pulled for projects. So I'm thrilled to see that LNH Health West kind of led the charge with expanding out on the west end of town. We're thrilled to see continued investment, continued improvements in the new construction market. So what's happening with retail? I think the biggest question on all of our minds, namely downtown. As we talk about vacancy rates, that's a report that our office puts together every year. We kind of want to get a temperature read on not only what the total vacancy rate is within the sectors of retail, office, and industrial, but more importantly, what's happening in those submarkets. So let's talk about downtown for a minute. Downtown vacancy rates actually remained flat. It was actually down just a hair. Overall vacancy rate for the entire market, at least in Lawrence, was just a hair below 7%, which is actually very healthy. The biggest changes we saw in the retail vacancy rate mostly happened in the 6th and North corridor with the closing of the Hy-Vee store at 6th and Monterey Way. So that's about a 67,000 square foot vacancy. That was fairly recent, so we're kind of excited to see what's going to evolve in that sector. Smaller footprints. We've been talking about this for the past few years, and downtown is no exception. The downtown marketplace, a typical storefront for a retailer in downtown Lawrence, is about 2,500 square feet. The demand that we're seeing for retailers in this area wants closer to 1,500 square feet and sometimes less. And you'll see different concepts that have utilized this footprint, like Anomaly. Explore Lawrence moved their offices into downtown on Mass Street this past year, so you'll see the few spaces that are taking advantage of those smaller footprints help those kind of retail concepts come to fruition. Flexibility, and I know pop-up has been kind of a buzzword that's been going around, but Lululemon extended their pop-up presence in downtown Lawrence, and we have several other retail concepts that are sampling out this trend, not only in downtown, but across our community. And experience-driven. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more as the presentation goes on, and I'm so thrilled to see that the City of Lawrence, as they're embarking upon their downtown redevelopment master plan, has identified experience-driven retailers and experience-driven businesses in general as a top priority. And we're going to talk about that more specifically too. Some of the featured transactions and properties that happened in the retail sector were the opening of Black Stag Brewery at 623 Massachusetts. And in the downtown area, we saw a few things happen. Guitarma, I'll point to this one down in the corner, opened up shop. Mama's Tamales happened over on 9th Street. Lululemon's Slade Foot at 714 Mass. Casey's General Market came into the area, opening one location on 6th Street and just bought and is redeveloping another site on South Iowa, as well as some, I mentioned Explore Lawrence, a few new retail concepts across the bridge in North Lawrence. So overall, healthy year for retail. So we go into office. Medical office led the charge last year. I think it was also spurred by the LMH West campus groundbreaking, but I think medical office is seeing a trend not only in our market, but across the nation. If we expand the medical office offerings, we go into healthcare, we go into fitness, we go into health and wellness, and I think those are all kind of trailing office users outside of medical. Where the vacancy rates fall, also healthy. It finished the year actually down a little bit, so our vacancy rate also went down in the office sector to land just around 10.5%. Upgrades and flexibility were also the norm in the office environment. We saw new office users want to move right into upgraded and technology upgraded facilities, so they didn't have to necessarily put the work in. Another thing we saw in the retail and office sectors as far as lease rate goes, lease rates were pretty stable, but concessions were down, meaning a tenant wanting to come into a space probably didn't get much free rent unless there was some work to be done, but they wanted to get up and started as fast as possible. Some office transactions that happened, we've already had a few leases signed at the new LMH West campus. 4921 Legends Drive has a new tenant that is on the market for sale. 1520 Haskell got sold to an office user. 3705 Clinton Parkway, 4910 Corporate Center Drive, and 3120 Mesa Way were just a few transactions that happened in 2019 in the office sector. In industrial, the trends continue to be access to freight lines, so having the accessibility not only of I-70, but of the South Lawrence Traffic Way, and continued conversations with how we can expand that whole system into a 4-lane is going to be paramount for how this sector evolves. And also the ability to expand. The sweet spot for industrial, typically in our market, still tends to fall in the under 10,000 square feet area. We do have a handful of companies that are ready to make the jump and go into a larger space, which is exciting. Vacancy rates also remained low in this sector as well. Featured properties that had transactions in this sector included several properties on North 1823 Road, out east at 1209 East 24th, off of 23rd and Haskell, 910 East 29th, some in North Lawrence, and also one west at 4910 Mockery Support. So let's talk about what's coming up in 2020. The industrial sector, kind of going backwards for a minute. East Hills Business Park and Adventure Park are having some significant things happening, and it's exciting to see. With the newest being US Engineering, announcing that they're going to be expanding into the Lawrence market with a significant investment into Venture Park. We have a couple of companies. Plasticon completed a 50,000 square foot expansion that was finalized in 2019 and has identified an additional expansion coming in 2020. And last but not least, Grandstand, also in East Hills Business Park, is going to be completing their expansion of 100,000 square foot expansion, adding 50 more jobs, and also significant investment into the area. All three of these projects were mostly due, and actually all of it due to the Catalyst program thanks to the City of Lawrence, and we're pleased to see that the Catalyst program is being utilized by other organizations and being expanded outside of this area. Oops. In the office, LMH Health West campus will open later this year. And as far as the office trends go, medical office, the fitness, the health and wellness is kind of trailing in that respect. We're pleased to see that new construction projects, both in the remodel sector and also new construction, are on the horizon for many of the product use out in this way. And last but not least, retail. And I think retail is a very interesting thing as far as how we attack it in our marketplace. Proxy Lawrence is a new project that is under construction right now at 1414 West 23rd Street that has taken advantage of the live, work, play environment. And I think that is a trend that is up and coming. think that's a trend that we're going to need to evolve, and how do we care for it not only, but recruit businesses to come and spend their money and use their space in this way. The one question that we challenge all of you to take a look at is that how can we continue to increase the tax base with projects like this, or projects that would increase the property value, the tax base, to increase the availability of funds for us as a community to improve our infrastructure, to recruit new businesses to come into town, and we're going to have that conversation in depth with our speakers here in a minute. So I want to ask all of you, I'm going to turn the tables on you for a minute, and this is an audience question, so a little bit of participation. Every single person in this room sells something. And I want you, with a show of hands, and think about your business. How many of you sell a product? So you sell a physical or a digital offering, and that's how you make the revenue for your company. Any hands? Okay. How many of you sell a service, a physical or digital action that helps somebody? A lot more. Okay. How many of you sell an experience, a physical or digital environment that invokes a feeling? I got some repeats in here. I think that's great. Traditionally, if we think about how business has been run, especially in the retail environment, because I think that's where we can identify with this concept the most, traditionally it would be you developed a product that you brought to market, you opened up a storefront, you sold the product. You coupled that with your service, customer service, how your clients interacted with you, and now to the scene is how do your customers feel about you? What is your image? What is your referability? How likely are they to identify with your values? Now we're seeing that this dynamic is getting turned on its head. Meaning, you almost need to start with the experience-driven environment first. We see this with a lot of online environments that may have started in a way where they only have an online presence. They don't yet have a storefront. They don't yet have a product to sell. And they're building an audience based on connectivity. And they're listening to their audience members to say, what do you want us to sell you? Is it somebody, am I in the athleisure environment because maybe my founder loved to hike mountains and they have a following and they built a considerable following and the community says, you know what, we would buy from you? We would buy from you hike and shoot all day long. Great, I'm going to go and find a company that I can partner with that shares my values and the hike and shoe product. I'm going to go make that product. I'm going to test market it online, and hopefully eventually I'm going to find space to sell it, and I'm going to service it really well. So I challenge you in all of your businesses, everyone in this room, to think about how you run your business in this way, because that's kind of the changing environment that we want to embrace. Okay, I hope all of you are online in this room. I know all of you are. We encourage you, please connect with us, and we would love to connect with you, whether it's on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. And if you haven't visited us yet, we have a weekly podcast called The Small Business Mindset, so please jump on anywhere you get your podcast and follow us on there. I know some of you in this room have been interviewed on that podcast, and we'll probably be reaching out to more of you to kind of hear your insights and share your stories. So let's get on with our program. The topic of today is technology in business space, and I think the three gentlemen that we've invited to join us today and share their perspectives are no exception to this concept, and I think I can learn a lot from them. But if my three guests will join me up here, Brendan Allen from Alarm.com, we have Jason Rogers from Matterport, and Bruce Manistel from ABS Legal Advocates. Welcome. I asked these three gentlemen to come and join us today because I think they all have a great story to tell. First and foremost, it has to do with your three decisions to even live in Lawrence, Kansas, because I think we all have our own stories as far as why we're here, not only why we're here personally, family, and then why we're operating a business. So I'm going to ask that of all of you. You could have decided to live anywhere in the world, and Brendan, I know you have lived anywhere in the world, but you've chosen Lawrence, Kansas. Tell me that story and why that is. Jason, you want to start?
Sure, I can start. I think it's pretty simple. It boils down to the quality of life. I've had lots of opportunity to take jobs in the Valley area, move to Boston, New York, or even overseas. The ability to take your kids to work, or take your kids to school, and then go to work, be able to be there for all of their appointments, not have to deal with some of the traffic and congestion, the opportunities that are here for me, and also being Kansas, born and raised, helped quite a bit.
Brendan, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of the same sentiment. It's quality of life, I think, having good schools to send your kids to, not having to worry about that. To be honest, once I kind of left, I wasn't sure I'd end up back here. That wasn't maybe my plan. And then, once I got back and stayed here a little bit again, it was like, why would I want to leave? And there's opportunities here. I mean, guys like Jason and I've worked together and have provided opportunities that I can do that, which has been great. So, yeah, I think it's quality of life, cost of living too. Isn't bad. When you look at those jobs on the coast, Silicon Valley, those places, you got to sacrifice a lot. And I just would rather not do that.
Bruce, what's your story?
Yeah, I think the same. I left for a while. I was in Dallas. I got tired of the very long commute in the morning, and it could be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what blew up on the tollway. And I think it is that you can live downtown here. You can walk a couple blocks and get some great restaurants. Some of the better restaurants. I will put the restaurants in Lawrence up against the restaurants in Dallas. There's probably more James Beard award-winning chefs in the Kansas City, Lawrence area than there are in Dallas. So I think it is not just a small town. It's changed a lot. I went to graduate school here. It is becoming more progressive, not only in terms of opportunities for tech companies, but it's also just the quality of life downtown. Restaurants have gotten better. Living is just generally better.
Fantastic. Talk to me about recruitment. Each of you have recruited teams to come to work with you, either with your current company or as you've developed companies over time. How does that work for you? What are your challenges then, and where do you go to find people?
I think in the tech industry, recruitment is a challenge anywhere. A lot of jobs, very, very high demand. And what I've found is there's plenty of talent. Kids that go to school, go to KU, and they get job offers in lots of different places. And a lot of them, for the reasons that we just discussed, actually want to stay in the Midwest. But they're looking for an equal opportunity of the type of tech that they get to work on and the type of teams that they get to be around. And so for me, that's something that's it's great to be in this location. We have a great company in Mount Report and a great team. It's a Silicon Valley startup, but yet we have a team here, so they can have that experience and still be in the Midwest. And then being connected to the Kansas City, Lawrence, Topeka corridor, and then it just networking across all of those. I find it a lot easier actually to recruit here. I've recruited in almost everywhere in the United States and different parts of the world, and it's easy once you kind of have that system.
Brandon, what have you done about recruitment?
So at alarm.com, which I'm fairly new there, I've been there about 6 or 7 months now, but they definitely have a pipeline for university students. So what they find in the areas, they're out in DC, they're in Redwood City and stuff like that, is that they find it's really hard to compete with Googles and Facebooks and stuff like that. They're the same people they're going after, and there's a certain amount of money those people can offer that it's really hard to match. And so they've started focusing more on trying to get talent through the school. So that's their big pipeline. That's why Lawrence also fit well into their plans to expand, is that it's another pipeline for them to bring in new talent. But we also, I think, I was thinking about the people that I've tried to recruit recently, and a lot of it's friends of friends here. Like, there's a lot of good people in town, and they might be working at places that, they don't want to commute there in Lawrence, go to Kansas City, and just hear about them from friends and bring in. But there's a really good pool of engineers that I've worked with on several different jobs that, have all worked and stayed around here because they chose to. So there's a lot of talent to be recruited here, and with the university just adds to that, I think.
Yeah. And for years I worked at Payless, so and I always had a hard time recruiting people in from the coast. And Lawrence became a gem of why we could get people to come here. For the law firm, it's a little different. It's centrally located. We've got Washburn, who produces great grads, KU produces great grads, UMKC, and then Columbia. So for us, it's a good draw, and it's the same thing as, they could go work for a large law firm, but we're located right down the street. We're going to move across the street, and I think this is the reason Allison put us together. We're all fighting about the same office space this last year, all looking at trying to find, we all needed a new space, and we all looked at the same spaces. Some of us are happy, and some of us are sad. So for us, it was, for a law firm, it's a little different. It's not about the tech, but it's also about, we're going to be right above a gym. So it's all the things that you can do to attract somebody. So we're going to be, we're downtown. Right now we have gym memberships right across the street. It's for them, it's a quality of life that they can't get if they go for a big city job. They're going to be working a lot different hours. They're going to be putting in, a commute. Here they can live above one of these buildings and work downtown and have a great life.
Have you seen in the last couple of years, as you've been going out to recruit maybe those recent university grads, whether they're from KU or Washburn or whomever, do they want to live here or do they want to live in Kansas City? Do you think there's a challenge to keep them in Lawrence? Do you ever hear that? And so how do we overcome that? What are they looking for?
Yeah, I do think that it's a bit of a mix. The one thing I would say is I find that a lot of kids and a lot of professionals sometimes prefer to live in Kansas City. I have a lot of people that work for us that drive into Lawrence. And a lot of that is maybe some fear that the Lawrence market for their jobs isn't as big as the Kansas City market. And actually, I found that isn't true, and I think they find that after working here for a while, and some folks have them.
I've heard you kind of describe this before. I think when I first met you a few years ago, you talked about the synergy that exists within the tech industry. So if you could expand upon that for a minute, if someone came to work with you, and because you've grown and merged and healed up companies a lot over the years, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had probably several employees that said, if I come to work for you and I move to Lawrence from Kansas City and that sector sells, I'm out of a job, then what?
Yeah, we've had some people with that concern for sure, and to the point where they want to work in the environment that we just discussed that I think Lawrence provides. They're willing to drive an hour and a half in some cases to get to that. But yeah, what's stopping them from moving here is just seeing and knowing that the community exists for their types of jobs. And it does. I think that's something that a lot of folks, some in this room and us, have been working on to expose all the technology jobs in Lawrence. But that goes a lot to the types of building and facilities and the way that the city promotes itself to really give them that assurance to have them live here and not just work here.
Brandon, what are you finding from that recruitment piece?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what Jason was saying. We see the same thing, like half of our people do commute in from Kansas City, and we'll do that for the advantage of having all those things. I know since I started working downtown, I switched my optometrist and dentist and everything because they're all right there.
Okay.
And it allows you to do all those things without having to go very far. So I think there's an advantage to that, so you've got that. I would say, one challenge I see with the university sometimes is that, not to throw them on the bus, but a lot of people don't know these jobs are here even in the university. So, you go talk to the students who are like, wait, that's here in town. And so I think, and we can do a better job of that by getting the career fairs, trying to get more interns and getting them in earlier, I think, as well. But that's one thing I think the partnership with the university could probably do better as well.
Yeah. Ours is the same. About half of our attorneys commute into Lawrence, and actually it's a little bit different. One of the problems is childcare. So for them, it's their kind of spouse works or they work, and so trying to find childcare close to their home. And then Lawrence has always struggled with childcare. I mean, even when I had younger kids, was trying to find quality childcare and getting them in without a wait list and all that kind of uncertainty. So for us, it's more of that side of it. The reason they probably haven't moved here is because they've got a childcare network kind of built up there, and to move here, they're kind of like, and one of the attorneys we're working with right now, I said, look, we'll go out and help you find childcare here, so it's a less stress for them, because if they've got an hour drive in, then they're an hour away from their kid. Right. So for us, that's one of the things we're looking at is how can we help? We're not big enough to have on-site childcare, but what can we do to help that stressor?
Just one thing I was thinking about to interject too is, I guess one thing to think about that we run into is it's not just finding childcare or finding them a job, but usually there's a second person that has a career, and so you've got to figure out how to also find a position for that person for them to feel like moving, and that's tough here as well sometimes.
Talk to me about amenities. I know all three of your companies are located downtown.
Okay.
There's a lot to offer downtown, but what specifically, if you're hiring or you're keeping staff, retention, if you could name off what has to be there, or what would be nice to be like a wish list, to kind of make you more recruitable.
Yeah, I mean, we've been over a lot of it already. I find when I'm recruiting somebody, if I can get them into my office and they can be in the downtown environment, I win automatically. And so it's being downtown, being in an area that has lots of restaurants, lots of coffee shops, the dentist is close by, everything is right there. It almost feels when you leave the office, you're not at work, it's cool, it's fun. So I think all those things are important. Being isolated somewhere, then it really, the building matters a lot. Because inside, for those that have facilities and things, from a tech perspective, we need collaborative areas, we need private concentration areas, not the traditional sort of office setup that you would have for lawyers. But maybe they need these things too. And also, fancy coffee and some of the things that you expect, you see out of the Googles in the valley, they want those, and they want that too. And the good thing is, from a lawyer perspective, you get it. You're just here, and it's great. And then inside, we have to build those things up.
Yeah, it's the restaurants, it's the gyms, it's everything, and having those. But then also just kind of, there's always street events too that happen, and just things they get pulled into. I mean, I think we had a lot harder time getting people not to work from home. If we, like when we got offices out west, and it's like, well, my home's as good as there, but whereas downtown you get a different vibe too.
And kind of the reason I'm here outside of the law firm being downtown is I used to be the CMO for Regis, which is, and I help beat WeWorks to death. So I'm very familiar with the kind of co-working office space demand that's out there and what's changing in the environment. And when you guys brought up about the live-work space, that is the trend kind of everywhere. And that is becoming more important. And downtown kind of gets it because it's already built in. I think the proxy project, I think, will be successful for that. We had 3,000 locations when I was at Regis. The ones that were most successful were those ones that had restaurants, retail, residential, and office space all in proximity of each other. And I think large corporations are figuring that out. McDonald's moved from the suburbs in Chicago to downtown because, I don't know how you guys are, but we find that, a lot of people I don't drive. I had staff in Dallas that didn't drive. So they was like, okay, my office was close to the rail line. So, they would pack their scooter, in a backpack, and then they would ride their skateboard from the train spur to the office. So that's one of the things that I think has, commutability is one thing, but actually access to, if there's mass transit, or access, to transportation, Uber, or whatever, is probably driving a lot of that live workspace because they're not going to have a car, because why?
You bring up an interesting topic. I'm glad you brought up transportation, because some of the trends we're seeing too is access to parking.
Yeah.
Now, granted, in a typical metro environment, parking is expected you're going to walk. One of the things we've seen, and earlier in the presentation we talked about office space, particularly medical office space, we've seen many spaces that maybe used to be retail use, a restaurant, for example, get converted to medical office. We saw that happen to Montana Mike's and the new eye care associates happening. One of the trends we're seeing that comes along with that is that a lot of times those repurposed buildings have extra parking. Now, granted, that's outside of downtown sometimes, but how important is parking? Is that an expectation? Is that an amenity that you're looking for?
It depends. One of the things when we started looking for space downtown was, we've got 15 and we're going to grow and add probably 5 more people. It was parking space. And then some places, lots were going to charge us what I thought was Dallas prices for parking per month. And so those who still drive, it's important. And I work with a group in Dallas, it's called Disrupt CRE, and they try to figure those things out. So Dallas went from having almost no residential downtown to putting all these high-rises in. One of the things they realized pretty quickly was, oh my God, we have all these cars that weren't here before. Oh my God, we have trash to get out in the morning. So they had to work with these companies. There's an Intelligent Cities project where they had to put measurement tools on the trash cans, because in the morning, if all of this congestion of all these trash trucks came in to pick up all these now brand new high-rises with all these people, no one could get to work in the morning. So they had to work on things like, so the trash can doesn't get picked up unless it's full. So I think that all that kind of thing has to be thought through about accessibility for parking. How many spaces do you really need? Some buildings don't need many, some are going to need.
I think there's a lot of questions too on that, like today, how much covered parking is there? And also there seems to be some confusion just because we run into this, like, you know, the lots, there's 10-hour lots, there's 2-hour lots, and some of them have meters, some of them don't. And so there is some confusion around the parking. I would say we've usually been able to find it or, you know, use part of the garage and stuff, but it is the first question you usually get when people come in, especially if they hear they're going to be in the downtown area. It's like, yeah.
Nobody wants to park and walk 2 or 3 miles when they're used to parking in the rain and the snow.
Yeah.
But it's kind of it's a weird duality between there is an expectation of parking there. We're always pushing the limits, especially as you know companies like Brendan and Mark grow. And then now we're running out of space again, and we're putting pressure on the other tenants as well. At the same time, the more we can do to have people sort of living in the area, and the better the public transit. I have people that visit that live in San Francisco that don't have a car, and they come here and they love it. And they're like, I could live down here, right? And then they see the bicycles. I've had them rent, you know, the bicycles, and I've taken them on. So there's an interesting thing that's happening there. Hopefully we get to the point where maybe more people can be in the area and have less of a parking.
And one of the issues that happens, like in Chicago and places I've done projects, is the residential parking, there's parking stickers for the cars, for people who live there, so you can't park on the side streets. So it really limits it more. Here, at least in downtown Lawrence, you don't have that, you know, where you have to have a parking. If you live on any of the streets adjoining downtown, you've got a sticker, and if you don't have that sticker, your car gets stuck. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that we have to think through too, as well as more density happens downtown, you know, where those cars get parked.
Let's talk about, you all work in technology spaces and every development. Talk to me how your physical space where you occupy your business has changed over the last 5 or even 10 years. How has it looked different?
You know, first of all, it goes from cubes to lots of different areas. We renovated a building in town at 2 companies ago. We put a lot of money into it, and it went from what looked like a set of suites for maybe doctors and lawyers to collaborative areas. So you break it off into a wing, and there's independent workstations with a meeting room in the middle. The meeting room has whiteboard walls all over it. Lots of areas for us to come together and eat and celebrate and relax and snack and have coffee. So it isn't very traditional, I think, in a sense of a normal office building. And we're always pushing the limits. Our goal in a lot of these companies is to grow. And so we start off at a certain size or a certain need. And every step of the way, we need to get better, we need to look better, we need to have more things and more space. And that also changes how we look at the space and use it.
Yeah, it's similar to that with the modularity of the space when you grow, because I mean, it's really hard to get in a small spot and then have to go immediately look for another place and then again, another place. These companies, I mean, that we're talking about are on pretty high growth trajectories. I mean, they can grow fast. We like them to grow quicker, but
When you say fast, how fast?
So, I mean,
is that every 6 months? Is that every year?
I mean, it can be, yeah. We've actually seen, like, so they're doing they want to have more interns, up to 60 interns this year, and they'd like to do 4 or 5 of them at a case. So, I mean, they did 2 last year. I mean, so stuff like that can happen pretty quick. But then, I guess the other change in the buildings, you know, over the years I've seen, you know, I mean, internet connections matter a lot more now.
Yeah.
Like, are you on a fiber line? You know, what's the speed? Can you guys, because that matters a lot. Having collaboration space, even if it's shared, maybe, you know, there's not much, most of the jobs that, unless you're a startup around here, you're probably a satellite office or a bigger office, and so you don't have any of the other functions with the tech people, so you don't really need the infrastructure of, like, say, reception and all this other stuff that a lot of buildings have.
Yeah.
So they're kind of wasted on it. So you see that change a bit too.
Okay. What do you think?
You know, I think that's one of the key things. It's like, you know, you know, like in what I call seed rate real estate, there's a lot of open area, you know, that's how a lot of this co-working got started. I mean, most co-working startups, they spend about 90 grand on furniture. There's not a lot of capital involved. It's an open area. Basically, it's a density play of just a bunch of desks that people sit around. But the most important thing is fiber. You know, what's my Wi-Fi? You know, and the speed. But then it kind of becomes more amenities as it moves up. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're moving spaces, because we needed a different look and feel that we couldn't get where we were. But it becomes like, even if, you know, you have like large co-working areas, you still have to have private spaces for people. We did a lot and we were going to show you actually, it's because of technology. We can't show you.
We can show a little bit.
We can show a little bit, but I mean, Jason and I did not work together, but I worked with his company out of San Francisco to do some really cool things. This is a dollhouse view of one of our spaces in Dallas. It's 70,000 square feet of leased office space. Basically, we sublease it to other people. That's what Regis' business model is. But it was, you know, it's the technology, but you have to then create private spaces. You have to create phone booths, you know, you create player areas. We had ping pong tables, foosball tables. We had a barista in these centers. Yeah, you can't tell, just it's like, you know, some modern art painting. So it should be if you just leave it here. But, you know, you have to add that because one of the things I think you find with millennials a little bit is they're not used to having private space. Like if they go to a startup company, they're kind of in a communal pulpit, you know, and it's a bunch of tables. So you got to create like these little niches to put people in. You got to create a little place for them to have a private phone call. You got to create a place for a little team meeting, you know, a group to go off and do stuff, which didn't kind of exist in traditional office space. Doesn't really, you know, in startups, as you grow, you kind of add those things. But I think it's what they expect, you know. Look at, you know, when Amazon started, they was working on sawhorses with, you know, doors. That was their desks. And then eventually it kind of all morphed. And I think you get that kind of thing where I think eventually, millennials are going to be, private offices are going to be important to them. Because it's like, I have my space, you know. I've now moved up and I got a space. I'm not in this big bullpen, you know, bullpen area. So yeah, I think it's changed a lot.
One question that we got beforehand as we sent out invitations was how can current property owners, if they're an investor in the building, how can they invest in the spaces within their building to recruit and attract companies like you? Where do they spend their dollars?
And I'll start with this one because that's one of the struggles I had because I was used to doing retail and really turning buildings around very quickly. When I got to Regis, you know, they were still doing stuff kind of traditional walls. You know, so you got 5 unions involved in putting up a wall. You know, you got an electrician, you got a blazer, you got all. And the WeWorks was beating the heck out of us because they were doing modular systems. You know, and I think that's one of the things for like startups like this. Can you create privacy with walls that are not permanent? You know, LED lighting systems, and it's all connected panels. And so if you're going to spend $160 per square foot to finish, can you get the building done quicker by putting in modular wall systems that don't require an electrician, a plasterer, a glazer, you know, a carpenter? So I think there's more flexibility in those kind of systems. There may be a little bit more upfront cost, but I will tell you, you'll get more return because it'll be flexible for these guys. All of a sudden, if they need, you know, 4 more offices, they can divide a common space and put 4 more offices, and you can have it done the next day. You know, I think there's that kind of thing that doesn't get thought through. It also will get your construction done a lot quicker because by the time you're done with all those unions and how long it takes to build stuff in, if you can put in modular systems, you know, some of them go all the way to the ceiling. They've got sound, you know, deadening systems, so you can have great privacy without really having to put up a plaster wall. I think that's the kind of things that, you know, and a lot of the co-working spaces, a lot of the new innovative spaces, that's what they're doing. They can get the space up quicker, and then makes it more flexible for especially growing companies to come in. They can take a whole floor and change it around in a couple of days.
I mean, I think that's important as well. I mean, the paradigms, they kind of all come back around. They're cyclical, but, you know, it was offices, and then it was high-wall cubes and open workspaces. Now it's kind of coming back to cubes again. And probably really into offices, like you said. So having the flexibility to be able to change those really does matter a lot because there are trends that move pretty quickly in that industry. In our recent space, it was really nice. And I know this is not always possible, but, I mean, the space was at studs when we went there. And to have the flexibility to design the space the way we know we're going to use it is pretty nice, and to be able to tell them we want the flexibility, and that's not always possible. But hopefully, with, you know, especially having some of these companies here funded by larger companies, that, you know, the ability to sign long-term leases to make that worthwhile, I think would be good as well. I think to see more on that.
I think they said that flexibility is key. I mean, in 2 years we went from 3 of us to 17, already through one office move, now looking to see how we can grow again. And so every time something new comes or a new role is established, how we're going to change the office to to give people more conference rooms, to give more space, all those things. So more flexible spaces, I think the better. I think an interesting experience I had was the space that we had reconfigured, which was over on Wakarusa, was made for a company like Brendan's or mine. And a lot of the spaces that we currently have are just made for general purpose office. And our facility manager out of San Francisco was coming down to go look at the spaces. And every space we went in is like, oh, hold on, this needs to change. What about that? What's that going to cost? And we walked into the space on Wakarusa and it was like, this is already perfect. Because it's built for a tech company, it's configurable, there's lots of options to it, those types of things. That's maybe other issues in other areas, but it's interesting to get that perspective.
And it doesn't have to be new construction. This building is actually an old brewery behind it. And I wish we could show you the whole thing. So if you go to my website, brucemansell.com, you can find their Matterport work and images of the site and how the layout. But you know, we took stuff from the community, like so. Dallas has Magnolia Oil, which is mobile. So there was actually was a part of the building. It was painted on the wall, so we left it. So, but it was an old brewery, so it wasn't brand new space. We just took it, and I think left raw walls, but we used modular systems as best we could to fill it out.
So one final question before we wrap up the evening. How can we as a community, whether through commercial real estate, through city or other partners, help recruit more companies like you?
Sure.
Better beer.
Better beer. But no, you know, it's one of those hard things to describe. Because I think it's a virtuous cycle where when you get one part, the other part comes in. Like, so again, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but a big thing for us is we're finding more competition on the coast for talent. And so they're really focusing on, and not just talent, but stickiness in talent. They're leaving quickly too. So if they do come, there's so much, competition and high salaries that we either don't want to pay or can't compete with, that they move on quickly. But Lawrence kind of has the solution to both of those. I mean, it's the cost of living is a bit lower here, so we can pay a bit less. But then also the people that stay here. I mean, I've worked with Jason for a long time. There's some faces in the crowd that we've worked together with for a long time, all here in Lawrence. We've chosen to stay here for a reason. And that doesn't happen in a lot of the other tech places. And so I think they're starting to see the value of that. And so the company's starting to invest in that, like in our new space and stuff like that, which then I think shows that, hey, there are these companies that will invest here and there as tech and Lawrence, which then leads the people in commercial real estate to start putting more thought into those things. So I don't have a perfect answer, but I mean, those companies are there, and there is those tech companies that, especially some of the startups here in town, that I think can grow into those companies.
So I think one of the things I've learned is there is capability here, and especially for folks, a lot of what we're doing for Matterport is we're a technology satellite office for our corporate headquarters in Sunnyvale. And other folks want to do this, and they just need to know that they can trust Lawrence like they can trust Austin, or they can trust places like that. And so as a community, showing them that we're here to support them, we're here to help them start their office, and they know that they can grow here. And if they come and visit, like I think a lot of folks that didn't know Lawrence, that maybe work for Matterport, and come, they immediately know, like, this is great. How can we get that out to them proactively? I think is key. So that's the city support, the university support. The university's done some great things and trying to attract other startups as well, and other big companies into their facilities. So more of that. And then I really want to feel like they're supported when they come.
Yeah, I actually think getting the word out, about what other companies here. I mean, I think, we're a law firm, but nobody knows that we're here. We're a federal law firm. We have 2,000 clients across the country. So even the lawyers don't know what we do because we're a very specialized firm. So I think there's those stories. I think that's always the trick is, when I worked at Payless, it's telling the stories about what Lawrence was like. But I think it's now telling the stories about what companies are here and how those companies are growing and how they can find the employees to fill them. That was one of the problems we were at Payless was trying, do we need to move someplace else? Do we need to move to Dallas? Do we need to, because we struggled so much to get staff there. I think that's the thing that all the commercial real estate, and I think the whole city needs to do is, here's those gems, here's the people that are, top chefs that are, award-winning, chefs. Here's the companies that are startups. I mean, literally, I worked with Matterport every day for almost a year working on technology. I didn't know these guys existed here. And I never sold my house in Lawrence. So I think that's part of it, is tell those stories, and then it will help all of us bring people in, because, if they're all hidden,
We don't need better beer. We have the best.
Jump here.
I want to thank all of you for your contributions today. I know I learned a lot. I hope all of you learned a lot. I invite you to stay with us afterwards. Join us in the lobby for our reception. Keep asking these guys questions. I know, you're a wealth of information. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.